So again, good evening. My name is Greg Holmes. I am the Southern Oregon Planning Advocate for 1,000 Friends of Oregon, a land use advocacy group working down here in Southern Oregon. It's also my honor to be serving as the chair of the Rogue Valley Food System Council, which you'll learn more about tonight. On behalf of my fellow council members and the partner organizations in the network, welcome and thank you for coming out. For those of you who are not familiar with the Rogue Valley Food System Network, we are a collaboration of community stakeholders, nonprofit organizations, businesses, educational institutions, government bodies, and individuals who are all working together on the various pieces that are necessary to build a strong and equitable and sustainable food system for Jackson and Josephine counties. Our partners are working on such diverse issues as food deserts, access to food by low-income residents in the valley, public health issues, and economic development issues around food and farm businesses. Tonight we're going to talk to you a little bit about the network and how we came to be, and some of the projects that we're working on that have to do with that latter topic of economic development and food and farming in Jackson and Josephine counties. There's a lot more that we're not going to be able to talk about tonight. We hope to have future forums like this where we start introducing some more of those topics. I would like really quickly just to show this sticker here. The folks who are wearing this sticker are members of the Rogue Valley Food System Council. If you could just briefly stand up so you can show yourselves where you are. Wendy, wave there. There's several in the food kitchen back there, these folks here. After we're done this evening, if you have any questions, find one of us with this sticker on. We'll all be happy to tell you what we know and guide you to the places that you need to get the information you might be after. This is a really exciting kind of different model for working together. And it's getting the attention of funding groups. We have a number of funders, some of whom I'd like to thank tonight, including Meyer Memorial Trust, Gordon Elwood Foundation, the Carpenter Family Foundation, the Cliff Bar Family Foundation, the Oregon Community Foundation, and just today we were presented with a fairly sizable grant from Wells Fargo, which is going to continue to fund some of the work that we'll be talking about tonight as we move forward. So it's pretty exciting. Speaking of support, I want to thank the folks who provided the food tonight. It's really hard to find locally grown coffee, so that's an exception to this. But we tried very carefully to source all of the food that's here tonight locally, and the farmers who grew that food were paid for their efforts. So we're very proud of that. I think the last thing I want to point out, if anybody needs a restroom and you don't know, out the back door down the hall to the left, and if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it. And otherwise, we will get started on our program tonight. To kick us off, I would like to introduce Representative Peter Buckley. For those of you who don't know, Representative Buckley was just reelected to his 6th term representing South Jackson County. Did someone groan? In the Oregon legislature. He's a member of the Ashland Food Project. He's a longtime staunch supporter of small farmers, the organic food industry, and a GMO-free Jackson County. As the chair of the House Education Committee in 2007, he was instrumental in bringing Farm to School program to Oregon, and since 2009 he has been serving as the House co-chair of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means. Did I get that in the right order? Great. Please help me welcome Representative Peter Buckley.
Thank you. It's great to be here tonight. It's great to see everybody out here tonight, and I'm going to say why in a few minutes, why it's so great. One of the untold stories I think about our state is that we have a remarkable ability in our state to collaborate. And we don't always see it. I mean, there's obvious examples like the building just down the block, the RCC SOU building, a collaboration between the community college and our university. But that's just one example of our ability to do a collaboration. On the statewide level, probably one of the most, I think, prominent ones right now is the coordinated care organizations happening in healthcare. This has developed over a number of years where providers in healthcare are now integrating their healthcare delivery, physical healthcare, mental health care, dental care, eye care, an integrated delivery of healthcare that is allowing us to provide healthcare to more Oregonians at a lower cost. We can do these things. We can do these coordinations. In public safety, something that hasn't gotten a lot of notice in the last legislative session, we collaborated, law enforcement, judicial, drug and alcohol people, mental health people, collaborated on changing the public safety system to get more dollars down to the local level, to collaborate on programs that keep people out of prison. And in doing so, we've succeeded in stopping the growth of the prison population in the state of Oregon. So we're not going to build another prison. That would have cost us $600 million for our state over the remainder of this decade. We're collaborating in public safety. Here in Jackson County, a little reported story is the collaboration around foster care. Rita Sullivan, who runs On Track here, and Senator Alan Bates led this effort to collaborate on changing how child welfare is done in Jackson County, bringing together law enforcement, judicial, school districts, the community college, anybody and everybody who touches a family in crisis, and talk about how do we collaborate, how do we work together to keep families in crisis together so their children are not going into the welfare system. And within 3 years, they've reduced the number of kids in our foster care system by 50% in 3 years. So we have the ability to collaborate here. We have the ability to collaborate and solve problems. In our state, our in-home care program for seniors and people with disabilities, Oregon has more seniors living at home per capita than any other state in the country because we put our resources together. Our county government, state government, nonprofits work together to provide care for people where they want to be cared for, in their homes or the least institutionalized setting possible. We can do this. We can collaborate. Now, all these things I've mentioned, most of them are collaborations about solving a problem, looking at a problem and solving it. And Greg mentioned this about part of the food system. Part of this collaboration that we're going to talk about tonight is solving problems. How do we make sure that people at all income levels have access to healthy foods? How do we make sure that hunger gets addressed in the state of Oregon, but particularly in the Rogue Valley? What do we do about it? How do we collaborate to solve that problem? We have things like the Food Project. How many people here belong to either the Ashland Food Project, the Medford Food Project, Talent Phoenix? A lot of folks belong to the Food Project. A fascinating, smart collaboration, what a smart, effective collaboration that is, that addresses a problem. But tonight, we're talking about a food system network that goes beyond that. Not just solving a problem, but charging after an opportunity. We've got this tremendous opportunity in the Rogue Valley. And I think the vote that happened last May on the GMO ban is part of that opportunity. But we have a great strength in our farming community, a great strength of the quality of the products that we produce here, and the demand for the quality of the products that we produce here statewide and beyond statewide. By coordinating our efforts, we're going to be able to expand the markets and the opportunities for the people in this valley, not only to provide food to people at an economical method here so all incomes can have access to food, but to expand our markets, to expand our opportunities for people to produce goods here, develop new food products here, and market them outside, actually engaging people into our economy at a level that's going to fuel our economy for years to come. It's tremendously exciting collaboration. I spend a lot of my days working on problems, working on things that just seem to be so hard for people to get through. So when Greg briefed me about the Food System Network, I was delighted. I was absolutely delighted to hear about this collaboration. That's such a positive thing to go after this challenge in a very opportunistic way, in a very effective way, in a very smart way. So this is a very exciting thing we're all part of tonight. You're here at the launch of a collaboration that's going to go forward and bring great things to our valley if all of us join with it, support it, make it work, stay out of turf wars, and keep that collaborative spirit going, because we're fully capable of collaborating in a way to bring things forward for all of us, for each aspect that food touches in our community. So thank you for being here tonight. I hope you'll share my excitement on this project. One other quick note, the day after Greg briefed me on the Food Systems Network, I got an email from the Oregon Business Association. And they're a major business lobbying group. Most of the members are in the Portland area. but one of their priorities for the next legislative session centers around food. And they did the math. They looked at what happened with the food industry in the state of Oregon during the recession. And they saw that the food industry and the wine industry and the beer industry, like every other industry, took a hit during the recession. But the food industry, the wine industry and the beer industry recovered quicker and accelerated, while every other economic sector in the state was still struggling. Employment in the food sector, revenue in the food sector accelerated faster than any other sector of our economy. So one of the major business associations is now saying, hey, wait a second, there's a lot of money involved here. There's a lot of opportunity involved here. And one of their priorities for the next legislative session is to support the development of food hubs and food systems throughout the state. The Rogue Valley is up in front of this. We are already at the front of this charge. So I encourage you to be part of this, ask questions, make sure you understand it, how you can participate, how you can support it, and let us lead the charge of the state of Oregon to a new collaboration. Thank you.
Well, I sure am inspired. Thank you, Peter, Representative Buckley. Can we give him another round of applause? So my name is Stuart O'Neill. I'm the Executive Director of Rogue Farm Corps. I also serve on the Food System Network Council. For those of you that don't know Rogue Farm Corps, we are a nonprofit based here in Southern Oregon with a very simple mission to train the next generation of farmers and ranchers. And this is a crucial component of our work to recreate the food system. We need about 1 million new farmers in this country to have the type of food system that we're going to be talking about here tonight. So feel free to come chat with me more at the end of the night about Rogue Farm Corps. We've got some information over there. So I'm just up here to introduce our panelists and tell you a little bit about how tonight is going to go. You're going to hear from these 4 speakers pretty soon. I'm going to introduce them to you. And at the end, we're going to have time for questions and answer. But we're going to do it in a moderated way. So there's some folks that are going to be circulating around the room. Hannah's in the back with 3x5 cards. If you think you might want to ask a question, please take a card. If you want to address a specific panelist, please write that down on the card. And at the end of the evening, we'll take all your questions and we'll ask them from the podium up here. And we'll be doing that. We'll be reminding you how that works at the end. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our 4 speakers. First up, we're going to hear from Vincent Smith. Vincent is an assistant professor of sociology and environmental studies at SOU. Dr. Smith directs the SOU Greenhouse and Sustainability Councils and serves on the Rogue Valley Food System Council. Current research includes local eating behaviors here in the Rogue Valley, including mapping and monitoring the Rogue Valley food system in an online interactive map. After Vince, we're going to hear from Elise Higley. Elise manages the Rogue Valley Grown effort for Thrive, a nonprofit committed to creating a more sustainable local economy. And in that work, she works with farmers and buyers in Jackson and Josephine counties to increase wholesale produce grown and sold locally. Elise is a mother, a grandmother, and a farmer herself, and is passionate about finding viable solutions for preserving our agricultural heritage in this valley. After Elise, we're going to hear from Maud Powell. Maud runs the Small Farms program at OSU Southern Oregon Research and Extension Center here in Central Point, which offers education and technical advice to growers in the Rogue Valley. She and her husband own and operate Wolf Gulch Farm, and she coordinates the Siskiyou Sustainable Cooperative, which markets the crops of 8 organic farms locally. Maud also serves on the Food System Council. And last, we're going to hear again from Greg Holmes, the Southern Oregon advocate for 1,000 Friends of Oregon, where he's been using land use policy to preserve farmland in Southern Oregon since 2002. Greg recently served as the co-chair of the Jackson County Agricultural Task Force, making recommendations to the Board of Commissioners for policy changes to enhance farming opportunities here in the Valley. Greg is also the chair of our Rogue Valley Food System Council. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Vince to come up.
Thank you. So I get the opportunity tonight to talk about food system councils and food systems generally. And what I'm going to do is hopefully to illustrate for you conceptually what probably most of us know in a very applied ways, and that is what a food system really is. And the reason for going over this, what is, I hope, a review for you, is to demonstrate that there are a number of components to a food system. We frequently think about one or more of those parts because we are engaged in those components, but it is a much broader concept. So the food system is every component that takes the food from the farm and brings it to your plate, which means there are a lot more people involved here than just farmers or consumers. There are distributors, there are retailers, there are processing facilities, all of those individuals working together make up a food system. Whether they make up a food system that's sustainable, that is economically viable, that is socially just, depends on individuals' ability to communicate and to collaborate across those partnerships, which unfortunately doesn't always happen. And we're committed to making sure that it happens here in the Rogue Valley. So this is an illustration of that. So if we look at this in terms of 5 components, this is a simplified version of this. We would think about it in terms of production, processing, distribution, consumption, and then waste handling. All of those are major components of our food system. If they work together, and they work on infrastructure together, if they make decisions together, ultimately we can develop what we hope is a sustainable food system. And I mentioned that before. That involves environmental, economic, social, and nutritional components. We often are good at thinking about one of these pieces, maybe 2 of them, but it's very infrequent to find a group of people who can think about these things collectively unless they work together. So I'm going to make that food system diagram a lot more complex for a minute. And I'll just spend a minute on this. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but let me describe how this works. So around the outside of this food system, there are, in fact, the kinds of individuals I've been talking about. There are distributors and waste disposal managers. There's those who are growing our food, processors, the consumers, each of us. But there are also a number of other things going on here. We have values, and those values are a part of all of that's being handled here. For example, we have values that surround food insecurity. We want to make sure that our community is food secure, whether that be regionally food secure or nationally food secure or for a household being food secure. We also care about other things like farm viability. We care about things like environmental stewardship and economic development. We care about things like jobs and community viability. And unfortunately, frequently, when those components in the middle don't communicate, we fall short of being able to provide all those basic services we see around the outside. And finally, on the very outside of that hub, you see all the stakeholders. And those stakeholders are diverse. They're government agencies. They're individual nonprofits. They're individuals like you and I who simply decide how we're going to eat. They are organizations that advocate for individual components, but they do so collaboratively in hopes of being able to make all of this work together. So let me just say a couple of words about a food system council. So this was introduced to you tonight by Representative Buckley and by Greg Holmes. We talk about the fact that we are doing this here. I simply want to draw attention to the reality that this is not the only place this is happening. It's happening all over the country. Food system councils have been going on for a long time. And food system councils have been changing the way the food system operates. When you hear about new policies in states nationwide, when you hear about new organizations or new structures for farming, it is largely the result of excellent food system councils working together to do what they're supposed to do. We've developed this process thanks to a lot of work over a couple of years to understand what all of you want in a food system council and what you want in a food system. So we didn't come at this from a top-down approach. What we didn't want to do is say, look, we're professors, we're farmers, we're ranchers, we're retailers. We know what the food system should look like. So we spent over a year in community meetings trying to determine what it is that this valley wants to see in a food system. The result of that work is what you're going to hear tonight. The projects that we're working on came in out of a year of asking people. A lot of questions were asked. A lot of answers were given. Those happened in community food discussions. A lot of them happened over great meals somewhere in this Rogue Valley. And we hope that what we've done is be able to capture all of what you have to say and do something meaningful with it. Now, I have to admit something simple, and that is that food systems are huge. This is not the kind of thing you just shift because it's really important to shift. It takes a lot of time. So what you're going to see tonight is the beginning. It's the beginning of a lot of work that's going to take us a lot of time, and we're not going to be able to do it alone. So one of the things that's going to happen tonight is we're going to ask for your help. We're going to ask for you to get involved as individuals, as community members, as organizations, to get involved in whatever way you can. And there's a lot of ways to do that, and I'll point those out tonight. So let me comment on just a couple of food councils that exist already in the state of Oregon. There are already 200 food councils nationwide. The USDA is counting them and tracking them to figure out where they all are because they're radically changing the way the food system's functioning. We have a Central Oregon Food Policy Council, Lane County Food Policy Council, Treasure Valley Food Coalition. The Portland area has a food system council, and now Rogue Valley joins that system with a network of individuals who can communicate regionally. We can also begin communicating statewide with organizations that can make a difference. Representative Buckley mentioned a minute ago, for example, that there are funding opportunities that might be available to us if we think about how we could communicate with those other organizations. We can learn from their mistakes, most notably, and they've made a few. as will we. So let me just tell you our mission. It's very simple. It's not as simple as Stu's mission over there, but it's pretty simple. The Rogue Valley Food System Network establishes a collaborative community of leadership to develop and advocate for a healthy and sustainable food system in Josephine and Jackson counties. Very simple. Our work is to develop collaboration. We're here essentially to get you to communicate with each other. We're here to make sure that we're communicating with each other as leaders of organizations and businesses that impact the food system. That's the role we play. Individually, our organizations do a lot. Collaboratively, what we do is to make sure that everybody is doing the piece of the puzzle that needs to be done, and that we don't overlap, and that when we seek resources, we seek those resources wisely, rather than going out and asking for the same thing of 12 funders from 12 organizations, all addressing the same issue, which happens too frequently. So let me tell you what we're interested in. And these priorities come directly out of those conversations we had over a year with all of you and many others. And this is not exhaustive. These are just a couple of things that we're able to tackle right away. So if your concept, your idea, your passion in the food system is not up here, it's not because we don't think it's important. It's because we had to start somewhere, and this is where we're going to start. We're looking to expand the market for local food through grocery stores. That's a big deal. That was asked and addressed over and over again in those meetings. People said, we'd buy local food if we could get it at our grocery store. We're not going to go to a farmer's market. We're not going to go to a co-op. We want to go to our grocery store. We want to get local food there. And so we're very interested in that. And Elise is going to talk to you more about that process in a minute. We're interested in developing a system to transport local food from farm to market. We're interested in distribution systems that will work here in our valley. We're interested in increasing access to processing and storage in order to make that happen. We're interested in offering hands-on cooking education programs, which you'll hear a little bit about tonight. We're interested in developing and implementing farmer training programs. We're interested in increasing access to healthy food, to strengthening community gardening opportunities, to improving composting, to ensuring land use regulations support and enhance opportunities for farmers. We're interested in developing and implementing farmer training, sorry, that's a duplication, and to centralize information through networking and leadership. That last piece there is the piece of the puzzle that I've been asked to address, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how I've been doing that. So let's just take that last piece for just a second. I've been working on a couple of projects that will help us do that. So first thing I want to introduce to you is our new website. It is titled, the domain title is rvfoodsystem.org. It's live and operating now. It just came live, so if you found a typo in there, I apologize. We're getting it resolved. That work is going to be housing all the work that we're doing. So everything that's going on, all the information that we find, all the networked opportunities will all be there on that website for you to visit. If you want to know where to find the nearest community garden, you'll be able to find it there. If you want to know who else is working on regional food distribution, you'll be able to find those organizations and contacts on the RV Food System website. You'll also be able to find narratives, vignettes, and educational opportunities for you and your children and the schools that you go to or frequent to learn more about what a food system is all about. That process will take us quite a bit more time, but the basic shell is up there. We also have a new interactive mapping interface that will be on that site. We're currently working on that right now. I'm working on that with a colleague, David Kramer, in the Department of Environmental Studies at SOU. And that website ultimately will allow you to go in and take a look at our food system in a dynamic way. So if you want to see where our community gardens are, you can pull them up on that website. If you want to see where farms and ranches are located in the Rogue Valley, you can pull those up independently as well. If you want to know where just orchards are, you can find that out. If you want to see where urban growth boundaries are and how they're impacting farmers, you can find that out on the website as well. So all of that will be there for your disposal. We're hoping that will also help individual decision makers and organizational decision makers make better policies that will impact our food system in better ways. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the individuals who can talk about these pieces individually. And I hope that you'll be able to find what they're doing a lot more interesting than the general overview, but I hope that gives you a picture of why we're addressing this from a large scale rather than just independent individual organizations. Thank you.
Good evening. Great to see everyone. So my name is Elise Higley, and I'm working on a really exciting project with Thrive right now with Wendy Saporin in the back. Where'd you go? She moved. So thanks, Wendy, for having me here tonight. I have to get my Peter microphone voice going. Politician voice. So So I'm working on this really exciting project called the Rogue Valley Grown Project, and it started with, this is a copy of the Community Food Assessment of 2013, and it was done with a lot of work from a lot of people here, Hannah especially in the back there, and Wendy, so Hannah from Thrive, the Oregon Food Bank, and the Meyer Memorial Trust Foundation. And this is kind of what Vince was talking about earlier. And if any of you need a copy of it or would like to read through it, it's actually super interesting information. And that's how this position came about. So what Vince told you earlier was people really wanted to see local food. They wanted to support local food, but they wanted it to be in the grocery stores that they're already shopping at. So basically, I came together with Wendy and other collaborators. We're working with SOU, with Vincent and the survey that you got together, and OSU, Small Farms, and Access, and who else are we working with? Rogue Farm Corps, of course, and we created this kind of branding called Rogue Valley Grown. And we got in contact with all of the farmers that are currently selling wholesale or that were interested in selling wholesale, and talk to them about what their needs were and what kind of help they needed to get their sales increased. And then we also talked to buyers and stores that were either currently selling some local produce or that were interested in selling more local produce. So I'll tell you more about it as we go along. So the big thing for me is what is local. So the reason we came up with this Rogue Valley Grown twist tie as part of our branding was because of this word local. There's no really, it means so much to everybody, right? I mean, what's local mean to you?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. What's local mean to you?
Oh, in Rogue Valley.
Okay. So to a lot of stores, it can be 500 miles. To some stores, it's 200 miles. To some stores, it's the valley. So we thought, well, this is really trying to promote produce that's grown in the Rogue Valley, Jackson and Josephine County. How can we get that across? So we created these twist ties. Here's some Rogue Valley grown sweet corn with one of my neighbors down the road in the Applegate, the Hill family. And these are the twist ties. So we created 2 twist ties. Got samples here for you. We can make bracelets today with them. So this is Rogue Valley grown organic. It's yellow. And we picked that because that was already what was happening in the grocery stores with the buyers. We didn't want to rock the boat. And so we tried to keep it pretty traditional. And then blue for Rogue Valley Grown, because some people really don't care if it's certified organic, but as long as they know the farmer and they know who it is, then they're fine with that. So we've got 2 different twist ties, and we also have stickers made to kind of show people, so when they're in the grocery store and they're kind of leery of that word local, what does it mean where they're shopping, they know that when they see this twist tie or that sticker or on that label that they see Rogue Valley Grown, they know that they're supporting a Jackson or Josephine County farmer. So that was really important. Let's see where we are. So who are our farmers? The Fries. So some of them, there's actually 23 farms that I'm working with this season. And one of them is the Fry family farm, which I'm sure everybody here knows them. And so it's been really special because I'm working with farmers who have been farming for decades in the valley and are really acting as mentors and helping other farms that are just getting started in the wholesale industry. And it's wonderful to work with people who already know what they're doing. They already have themselves established. And then we have other people like Anna and Jeff with Wandering Roots, who this is their first year selling wholesale. So they're new into it. They're eager to learn. They have experience farming. They grow amazing food, but they haven't sold in wholesale before. So it's really a combination of some great people. And then we've got the buyers who are, we're working with the Shopping Cart. We're working with the Ashland Food Co-op. We're working with the Medford Co-op. We're working with Food for Less in Medford, Grants Pass Farmers Market Store in Grants Pass. And we're working with Ray's Market, who has 4 of their stores are currently having this program. This was a picture taken. We got together the farmers and the buyers and actually invited the produce managers to the Fry family farm to really see what it takes, because it's been so interesting as a farmer being on the other side in a grocery store and actually putting in produce into these little slots that all need to be the same size zucchini or the same size cucumber, and I'm realizing why, produce managers want things to be the same size. So it's good for me to be able to communicate that to the growers. It's not just that produce managers are trying to be difficult. We all realize that things grow different sizes, but they have their reasons behind things. So it's really great for the buyers to go on that farm, tour it, see like what it takes from the seed all the way to getting it to the store, the wash pack process. And I think it was really great to have them kind of get a good chance to see what all that it entails to get to the store, and have a little bit more understanding and maybe compassion of what happens. So we do a lot of educational demos. So this is a volunteer, and it's really great to see all of you out here today, because I'm going to try and coerce at least 20 people tonight into signing up over at Thrive to help me with these volunteer educational demos, because that is the hardest thing for me, is I can't be everywhere. This position is a 20-hour-a-week position that I probably could work 200 hours a week and still not be done. It's not really an easy task, because you hear so many people saying they want to buy local produce, but then really when they're in the store, they're in a hurry, they're not really paying attention. And when there's somebody there who's saying, hey, did you notice these new twist ties in the store, this new labeling? You can make a choice. Actually, yeah, look right here. Here's garlic. Do you want to choose the garlic that's grown in China or in California, or do you want to choose the garlic that's grown in the Rogue Valley? Look at this sign right here. And they're like, oh, I'm going to pick that one. And sometimes they just need a little prompting. And it could really use anybody's help who wants to do that. It's an hour or two. We can pick out a schedule. It's one of those stores. It's a different store. Whatever you want. It's going to take all of us educating people to really, vote with their dollar on who they want to support. So that's my plea. Yeah, part of what we do with the cooking skills and with the demos, we do two different kinds. One is we just do a demo and do a sampling of produce. So this was, today actually, I was at the Ashland Food Co-op and sampling these pea shoots from TerraSol. So I put a little bio card out there, and you can see the twist ties in the background and their little stickers on their product, and talking to people about, if you look for these stickers or you look for these twist ties, you know that you're supporting a Rogue Valley farmer. And try this out. Here's a bio. It's Kyle and Christy. They're a really sweet couple. Just kind of getting people connected with their farmer. And we have farmers come in as well, and especially now that it's downtime, the farmers will come in more. So we're getting to the end of that. But that's what I need help with. And a really fun, exciting thing has been collaborating with Access, and Michelle is back there somewhere. There she is. She's got this for Eat Real Food. What is it? For Real Food. Go for real food. So that's what she's doing, cooking skills demos, and she really needs volunteers. So if you're good in the kitchen, or even just want to follow her direction, she comes up with all the recipes. So we talk and collaborate, and she says, okay, what are the farmers going to have in the store in 2 weeks from now? She comes up with a really great recipe, and then you come in and you're cooking it and demonstrating it in the store, and people get a recipe card, they get excited about it, and it's actually all ingredients that are grown in the Rogue Valley. At least we try, and her recipes really are gearing to what's in season right now. And that's been, it's been really interesting to work with that, and learning, just because you go to the farmer's market and it's in season doesn't mean that that's available in the wholesale into the store. So I'm working a lot this year trying to prepare and look at what buyers want, what consumers want, so that, we ran out of Rogue Valley grown garlic early in the season. Like, why did not more people not grow garlic? I don't know, but next year they will. So we can look at that and talking to stores and saying, how many pounds of garlic did you sell? All right, let's look at that. And so who's going to plant all those pounds of garlic? So this is our planning, our incubation season right now. And so we're really excited to be working with growers, working with the buyers to find out how much they're going to consume this next year, and getting them really to commit. So if we know that you use X amount of pounds of garlic and we can provide that, will you give us that promise that you'll buy that garlic then when you use it, and you won't go to just like easy snap on the computer and go to somebody else? And will you, as consumers in the grocery store, will you commit to buying that food? Because that's the other part. We can get the buyers to buy it, which we've had happen a lot in the raised markets, and then it doesn't move. And so they're stuck in a situation. Here they are buying local food, trying to do something good. It's sitting on the shelf for 2 weeks, and it goes bad, and they have to throw it out. And they wonder, why am I doing this? So that's where we need all of your help. That's kind of like where are we going? This is a picture of Antonio. So where are we going? Yeah, just looking at our future and where we're going with that, making plans It's really nice to have this part of the season where, you know, everything's frozen out in the field except for the roots underground, and this is really our time to kind of hone in, make plans for next year. We're meeting with a lot of buyers from the stores and really figuring out what we can do. So we need your help in the consumption side of it, or if you're growing on your own, you do a lot of growing, can you help educate people and be patient with people and get them to know that they are making a difference. We're also working on an online platform that Thrive is working with, that wholesale farmers can put their information all on one website, so buyers can go there and just look and like search kale, and all the kale that's available in the Rogue Valley is on there and what farm's on there, and then they can send that email to them and buy it. And I think that'll really help. You know, buyers want to buy Rogue Valley grown food, and I'd really appreciate trying to get that language changed too when you're in a store, you know, like, would you have Rogue Valley grown, not local, because local is, to me, like, I don't know what to do about that word, but Rogue Valley grown is helpful. So, yeah, I'm excited to answer more questions, and just really grateful to have this position, and encourage anybody who is passionate about increasing Rogue Valley grown produce in the store to please contact me afterwards. And if you have some great ideas, let's collaborate and work together. If you have another, you know, entity that you're already doing this kind of work, like, let's work together and make this happen. So we can see from the survey that there's, what, 4% of food, 4 to 10% of food consumed in this valley is Rogue Valley grown, which is great. It's actually pretty high, the national standards, but that's like, come on, right? We can do better than that. So yeah, so thank you so much. Okay.
Hi, everyone. You all have been standing for, most of you have been standing for about 45 minutes. So I thought we'd just do a quick, if you're a farmer, will you stand up? Let's give them a round of applause, yay! And if you shop at a farmer's market regularly, stand up. Yay! And as a CSA coordinator, I have to ask a question. If you're a CSA member, stand up. Yay. And if you work with local food communities, I know, yeah, they're standing up in the back. Yay. And if you eat, stand up, and then everyone can stretch. Great. Yay. So I just wanted to point out that just this very week, we had 2 in the Mail Tribune, Monday and Wednesday, today and Monday. The front page article was about food and farming in our valley. The first one on Monday was around shelf space, and SAU report suggests local growers should get more of their food in the area grocery stores, which is what Elise is working on. And then today was about the vote challenging the GMO ban. So these are big issues, and we're really glad you're here. And I'll pass these around as long as you promise not to read them while I talk. You haven't seen them. I also just want to give a quick thank you for those of you who supported OSU Extension remaining in Jackson County in the May election. We really appreciate that. The Food Council has actually been holding our meetings at the Extension office. We're in Central Point. We're centrally located. We've got the facilities to host the group, so we're really grateful to be there. And if you didn't support us, that's okay too. We're glad that we hope you'll continue to use us. So let's see. That's back. So I got some statistics from the USDA 2012 Ag Census for Jackson and Josephine County, just to kind of give you a broad sweep of what's happening in the counties. The general trends are that we are losing farmers and that our farmers are aging. The good news in my mind is that we do have more female-operated farms, which is great. Anything surprising anyone on these lists? Average age, yeah. And that is the national trend. We're seeing that increase. So what we're seeing, though, in the Small Farms Office is a lot of interest in small farming. And whether it's because people are concerned about where their food is coming from, their food safety issues, people don't want to work for the man anymore. The Portland hipster farm appeal is so strong that there's really there's a groundswell of interest in small-scale farming. So there's a lot of demand for our program, a lot of demand for education. Some of the major challenges that we're seeing, Elise mentioned this issue with saturated direct markets, so it's harder and harder for people to be profitable just selling at growers markets and through CSA programs. There's somewhat of a lack of infrastructure in the valley. One of the main things is there's not a USDA meat processing facility. I think the closest one is Eugene, so people are having to truck their animals 3 hours north if they want to be able to sell by the cut. There's a lack of access to startup and working capital. There's some issues with land and labor. There's a lot of land here, but it's hard to actually match up land leases. And then there are county regulations. And just to mention a couple things here, we have been working, Greg and the Agricultural Task Force in Jackson County have been working to develop a farm budsman position, which would actually help. It's an educational position, but it would help farmers to actually work through county regulations, since the regulations can be fairly confusing. We just had a class a couple weeks ago at Extension on farm stands, and there was a lot of confusion amongst people in the audience about what are the regulations around starting a farm stand. OSU, we have a really robust beginning farmer program. We see that as a real priority because of the aging farmers and the decrease in numbers. So we offer a number of classes throughout the year. We do a growing farms class, which is a business class for farmers. So we have a season-long hands-on program. We have a 1-acre teaching farm, and that's been a great program funded by the Oregon Department of Agriculture. We also partner very closely with Rogue Farm Corps, since we're doing very similar types of thing, educating new farmers. We've been collaborating for the past 4 years and offering our educational programs together in many cases. Just a little bit about RFC, because Stu gave us the mission. They have 18 participating farms in 4 locations across Oregon for their Farms Next program, which is their beginning farmer training. And then they have somewhere between 26 to 34 positions available on those farms. And they're now launching Farms Now, which is more for developing farm managers, and that will be 2 potential students in 2 locations. And Southern Oregon really is fairly cutting edge. A lot of the programs that we've started in Southern Oregon have been duplicated around the state. Rogue Farm Corps is an example of that, where there are now 3 other locations in Oregon. We've been partnering very closely with Thrive and offering the educational aspect of this wholesale marketing and scaling up. So throughout this year, 2014, we've had a number of different classes on supporting farmers with that. The next thing, on Friday, we're going to be hosting an Ag Squared training to teach people how to use software that will enable them to do farm planning for larger scale farms. And then we have an upcoming program in December where we'll be touring a couple of larger scale farms and discussing profitability, specifically when you're selling at wholesale. We took the opportunity with the GMO ban to really scale up our seed education. We see that as an opportunity to be marketing more of GMO-free seeds. So we've been partnering with a number of the local seed farms to offer a seed academy. We're developing a seed growers network, and we helped launch the Southern Oregon Seed Growers Association, which has a pinning map to ensure that there won't be cross-pollination and people can be providing seed that's true to type. And then we offer just all kinds of other classes throughout the year. One exciting series we just offered in conjunction with Thrive was a recipe to market, and that was for entrepreneurs who have some kind of food product that they actually want to get out to market. So we're helping them develop business plans, look at regulations, do they have to have a commercial kitchen, how do they brand their product, that type of thing. Yeah, and that's all for me.
So thanks, Maud. So far tonight, we've heard about this collaboration in our partner organizations who are working to educate consumers about how and where they can get locally produced, Rogue Valley grown food. And working with the stores and the markets and the distribution companies on getting that food in places where it's available to consumers, and working with the farmers on how to produce that food and get it into that system. There's one more key aspect that all of this is necessary for all of this to be successful, and that is the land that we grow the farms on. And that's where 1,000 Friends of Oregon comes in to this collaboration and the work that we do. Oregon is fairly unique. In 1974, Oregon created a land use program that is still functionally more or less the way it was when it started. Within a couple of years, the state, most of the land in the state, most of the private land in the state was zoned for specific uses and protected for those uses, whether that's urban uses, forestry, agriculture, other rural type uses. All of the private land in the state was zoned for one of those uses. As far as the agricultural, all of those uses, all of that zoning is, it's there, it's in place, but it can be changed. It's not like it's permanent, and because it can be changed, some of it's at risk still. So this is a map that shows all of the land that is zoned in Jackson and Josephine County and protected for agricultural purposes. It's called EFU, Exclusive Farm Use Zoning. That is all of the land that we have in these two counties that is zoned and protected for agriculture. That's not to say that's the only places that agriculture happens, but it's the land that's protected for that purpose. Now, those of you who are familiar with the area and know something about farmland know that farmland is not all created equal. This includes the rock outcrops that we graze our animals on. It includes the hillsides that we have our vineyards on. It includes the sticky, thick soils and hillsides that we have our vineyards on. And those are all part of agriculture. They're all part of the food system. They're all important. I don't mean to diminish them, but you can't grow certain types of crops on those lands. We need a certain type of land to grow a lot of the vegetables and high-value crops that Elise is working with the vegetables, with the farmers trying to get into the local markets. And there's only a limited amount of that kind of land, and they're not making any more of it. Whoops. Uh-oh, I just pushed the wrong button. Oh, good. So if we go back to this map that shows where is all of the agriculture, all the land that's zoned for agriculture in Jackson and Josephine counties. If we go to that really good, flat bottom land with irrigation where the high-value crops can be grown, that's what our map looks like. Okay? That's pretty scary. This land is very much at risk in the future, and for the reason for that is pretty easy when you go back and look at the history of settlement in our valleys here. The towns, when we originally settled here, they were agricultural communities. They were put near where the agriculture was happening. And because of that, right now, they are sitting on top of and in the middle of all of this good farmland that's left. There are projections that the population of Josephine and Jackson counties are going to double in the next 50 years. It's a lot of new people coming to this area. Where are they going to all live? Historically, Oregon's land use system tries to guide most of that growth into the cities. Historically, the way the cities have accommodated that is by expanding their boundaries. As you can see here, if we expand the city boundaries, it's very likely we're going to be taking out farmland because a lot of our cities are surrounded by it. So what do? We have to be vigilant about and work together and pay attention to what's going on. This angelfish here is actually the urban growth boundary of Grants Pass in Josephine County. Something very interesting and very unique happened in Grants Pass last week. Last Wednesday, literally, the City Council and the Josephine County Board of Commissioners voted to add the blue and green areas that are on this map to their urban area to accommodate the next 30 years of projected growth for the city. What was unique about this is there is not a single acre of farmland in this proposal. There is some good soil, but there is no land that is currently zoned and protected as farmland in this plan. That's extremely unique, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen in Jackson County. These are our cities here in the valley floor where we're sitting right now. The gray areas are the current city limits. The purple areas are the urban growth boundaries where the cities are already authorized to expand into currently. Over the last decade, the cities here went through an exhaustive planning process where they identified where they think they might want to expand their boundaries in order to accommodate that doubling in population. The green areas are the ones that they have chosen for that purpose. Now, this is not inevitable. It doesn't mean that all of this land is going to get used up in the next 50 years for urban purposes. But this is the land that they have to choose from. There are about 7,500 acres of land in these areas that are proposed for potential future urban use. About 6,000 of those acres are currently zoned exclusive farm use. Now, for those of you who know the valley, you know that this side of the valley is mostly hillsides, and this side of the valley has a lot of flat, good, deep soils on it still. So, to their credit, the cities did a pretty decent job if they were going to take this much land of staying on the other side of the valley on the lower quality stuff, but there's still roughly 1,000 acres or so of that really high quality land that's in these plans. Now, like I said, this isn't inevitable, but over the course of the next couple of years, these cities are all going through a process where they're going to select which of these lands, what subset of these green lands they're going to expand into first. Cities around the state and around the country are starting to realize that they can't afford to keep expanding like they have in the past. So at some point, that's going to slow down and maybe someday stop, right? So if we can work with the cities right now to keep them off the best of the best that we have left for this round of expansions, maybe they'll never get to the rest of it. At least we have a couple more decades for different values and different decision possibilities to come in. So that's something that 1,000 Friends of Oregon is working on. Expansion of the cities, however, is not the only potential threat to farmland. There is also a threat where people who own land try to convert it to some other use. This is again Grants Pass, and this is a case where the city of Grants Pass in 2006, at the height of the bubble, paid an extraordinary amount of land or money for 240 acres of bottom land, good farmland that has a history. That has a history of high production of in agriculture. They have no intention of expanding their boundaries over it, but they bought it to turn it into a park. So their plans over the years have included things like soccer fields, parking lots, amphitheaters, you know, all of these things that will take it out of production as from agriculture. We've locked horns with them over that. Right now that project is in limbo. And because of that, the city has turned and leased that land to the Josephine County Food Bank and a local farmer, and almost all of it is in production right now being farmed. But that threat's not over. That issue is going to come back, and a lot of other issues like that where people want to convert active farmland to other uses. There's a bigger scale and frankly more insidious problem that's happening right now too. As a political compromise a few years ago, a project was created called the Southern Oregon Regional Pilot Project. The stated purpose of that was to look at the agricultural and forest lands in Jackson, Josephine, and Douglas counties to say, you know, are there some of these lands that really aren't that productive that realistically should maybe be zoned for something else other than agriculture and forestry? That's a fair question, so let's look, right? Unfortunately, that project has recently been hijacked and has become more now about finding new sites for rural home sites, sometimes potentially at the expense of the resource uses that are out there. Right now, as the plan stands, there's the potential for up to 85,000 acres that's currently zoned for farm or forest use, most of it forest, but some of it farm, to lose its status under this project. Just for scale, that's more acres than are in the city limits and urban growth boundaries of all of the cities in all 3 of these counties combined. It's a lot of land. Okay, this project is moving forward. There's the potential of a proposal going to the state for approval as early as next July. We're working on this, but it's scary. And things like this come up in different guises over the years too. And we all have to pay attention to this kind of stuff and decide what is it as a community that we want to use our EFU, our farmland for. Do we want to keep farming it and producing food, or do we want to grow subdivisions and other non-farming uses on this land and take it out of production and make it impossible to help use that land to supply, help supply a local regional food system? That's part of the role that 1,000 Friends is playing in this. And one of the really exciting things for me about being involved in the Rogue Valley Food System Network is that I get to sit down with all of these folks who are doing all of this great, exciting work, and we get to talk together, and we compare notes and we compare projects, and we say, this is what I'm working on, and I can say, this is what I'm working on, and what I'm working on fits into yours this way, and I have these resources, and if you could tweak your project a little bit, it would fill in a gap in my project, and together we can be more effective as we move forward. And that's really exciting, and it's really a lot of fun. There are a number of ways that you all can plug into this work. We have a table in the back. Alicia is staffing about the Rogue Valley Food System Network. Stop in afterwards, see any of us to talk about how you can get involved in the network and the projects we're doing. But you don't even have to be involved with the network in order to get involved in this project. You can get involved in any one of the partner organizations, supporting any of those organizations and their work, because it's all part of the same work. So we are really thrilled to have you here tonight. We hope that we've provided you with some inspiration and some good information. We're going to switch over to a little bit of Q&A here. Stu will come back up. If you have cards, wanted to write some questions down, go ahead and do that, and somebody will be by to start collecting them. We're not going to get to everybody's questions probably tonight, but feel free to contact any of the four of us. Our contact information is up there. If you want more general information about the network itself, Hannah Ansel at the bottom, it works with Access. She is the Community Food System Coordinator there. She's got her fingers in all of this stuff, and she knows all of the projects we're doing, many of which we didn't even have a chance to start to talk about tonight. There's a lot of other things going on. She can plug you in, get you the information you need, and plug you into the places that really inspire you to be involved in helping create a just and sustainable and equitable food system for Jackson and Josephine counties. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Greg, Vince, Elise, and Maud. Got a few questions here. So again, reminders, if you have questions, please get them to one of these folks that are coming through with the cards. All right, we're going to start out with a good one right off the bat. Sure. What effect does the lawsuit filed to overturn the GMO ban in Jackson County have on your work?
You want to take it? Wait, are we getting up?
I don't know.
No.
So in order for the video to capture our voices, we're going to have this near us. So as the chair, I guess I'll try and tackle that. I think probably everybody in the room knows that earlier this year, the voters in Jackson and Josephine counties voted to enact a ban on growing GMO crops here in these two counties. Yesterday, a lawsuit was filed to challenge the Jackson County ban. The Rogue Valley Food System Network has been operating as if that ban is going to be part of the future of farming here in Jackson and Josephine counties. That's our assumption. We and our partners are working to identify and take advantage of some of the opportunities that having a ban like that in place creates for us. Right now, it's really far too early to speculate what the outcome of this lawsuit might be and what the impacts of that might be. So for the time being, for the long term, I think we're going to keep going with the assumption that that ban stays in place and it's part of our future here. If that changes, we'll have to reevaluate at that time, but there's no point in worrying too much about that right now. For the short term, I would say that that lawsuit should have no impact on the way we are managing and planning the projects that we've been talking about here tonight.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So this next question is actually directed specifically to Maud. Maud, would you please define market saturation? I do not know what that means, and I think I saw it on one of your slides.
Okay. So market saturation is the point at which a market can no longer absorb any new product or new producers. So the example that I gave on the slide was that some of the direct markets have been getting to the point of saturation, whether, I don't know, you probably have the technical terminology for it. He's the professor, don't ask me. But in the way I was using it, the point was that the farmers that I work with, they're going to market and they're not able to they're going to the farmers markets and they're not able to sell all the produce that they'd like to. And in the past, we had more demand for locally grown food in the direct markets than we had supply, and that's been shifting over time, and in part because of the work of training new farmers and the interest in small-scale farming. And so that's why we're looking for new markets. We're looking for wholesale. We're looking to develop the wholesale markets through the project with Thrive. We're encouraging more farmers to go into seed because we see that as a niche market. We're encouraging people to go into value-added products because we see that there's market room for that. But in terms of growing vegetables and bringing them either to farmers markets, selling them directly to the consumer through CSAs, and farmers markets specifically, those markets no longer have room. Do you want to add something? Yeah, great. Thank you. Professor?
I'm not going to talk technical at all. I'm not very good at that. So I want to just use an example of that. So we know that someplace around 4 to 10% of all the food we eat in Jackson and Josephine counties was grown right here. What we also know is that individuals who are going and trying to sell their product direct to a consumer are finding the market saturate, which is to say that there's not enough people buying that food. That means two things for us. One, we can either A, train people to buy directly from their farmers, so that's consumer education, or B, we can train farmers to produce in a way that will allow them to sell at grocery stores. So we're currently working on both of those avenues. I suspect that both of them are going to be important to our future here in the Rogue Valley. I think that's kind of new for people to grasp. I think a lot of folks perceive that there's this a market availability for farmers that there isn't at the moment.
How about export?
So this is an example right now. The question was, what about export? And so I'll just comment that we do have farmers in the valley right now who are finding it impossible to sell everything that they produce here in the Rogue Valley, and so they're exporting that product out. So for those individuals, they don't have a market. For many of those individuals, I can't speak for them. I suspect many of them would prefer to sell their food locally. It certainly gets them a better price if they could get it here, but there's just nobody to buy it. So we're working on that consumer education side.
Can I make a comment on that too? You want me to make a comment or no? Okay. So I wanted to just make a comment that you might find really interesting talking about, adding on to what Vince is saying. Our biggest wholesale growers in this valley actually export 60% of their food because not enough buyers are buying locally in grocery stores. So we need to do a lot of education. They're making a great living, but they're exporting it. And then we're bringing food in from other areas. So it's completely ridiculous. So, there's so much we can do. We just need to work with the grocery stores. We need to, educate our consumers. And, my goal would be keep exporting as long as we want farms to sustain themselves. We want them to make lots of money. We want to keep this land in EFU. But we also need more farmers to grow wholesale so that we can stop importing food and just have the food that we grow here. So.
Great. Thanks. So, Elise, actually, the next question is specifically directed to you. It's sort of a two-part question. The first part is, how can I get a Rogue Valley Grown sticker? And why isn't Thrive working to connect farmers with restaurants? They want local food, and they buy at the huge box stores now.
Yeah. So, whoever wrote that, come and see me because we're going to get a sticker made. But stickers, plastic, I don't know, but we'll figure out something. So we do have twist ties. I was thinking you could make, have those plastic bracelets. You could just have a twist tie bracelet on there. But we do work with restaurants, but because my hours are limited, I'm trying to get the most bang for our buck. And a lot of restaurants are ordering small amounts. They're not ordering a case of something. And when you're selling wholesale, to drive to a restaurant for 3 bunches of kale is really difficult. So we are coming up with this new online platform that will allow restaurants to look and be able to order from multiple farms. And farmers are actually looking next season to collaborate on their delivery. And then we also are really fortunate to have OPW, Organic Produce Warehouse in Ashland. Tom Marks is here somewhere. He's not here.
He's a Rogue Valley Council member.
And he's a Rogue Valley Council member. So he also is our local distributor. And so we are working with restaurants, and he works a lot with restaurants. But I have to focus somewhere, and I'm picking the grocery stores right now. And that's what was part of the assessment to answering that question, or that need.
So the next question is, once young farmers are trained, how can we in the Rogue Valley help them financially to buy or lease long term? Can land trusts help?
Great.
So it's Friends of Family Farmers? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's an statewide organization that a lot of us work with called Friends of Family Farmers that has a program that's trying to match aspiring farmers who don't have access to land to people who have land that don't want to farm it and maybe haven't figured out what else they want to do with it yet. That program is statewide. There's not a lot of focus down here, but it does exist. The land trusts was can they help? They can, but the devil's always in the details in those things. It depends on how they're set up and who manages them. And right now, as far as I know, we don't have a lot of that sort of activity in this area.
White Oak Farm, is that agricultural? I don't really know what to add. White Oak Farm in Williams is an agricultural land trust, and I believe the Southern Oregon Land Trust set it up, and they actually said it was really difficult to do that for a farm. So I think land trusts, having it farmed in perpetuity, is actually pretty difficult. But I did want to mention, too, that Thrive and OSU Extension put on a land connection conference a couple of years ago with the goal to match farmers and landowners. It is really difficult to get those matches, but we're planning to host one in the next year or two as part of our collaboration as well.
All right. So we're going to do a couple more, but we're going to leave some time so you all can mix and mingle and network here at the Rogue Valley Food System Network meeting. This one is switching gears a little bit. Are there any studies that have looked at irrigation security here in the Rogue Valley, considering that we get much of our water from the Klamath Basin?
Okay, so do you want I'll address just part of that. One of the issues with urbanization and cities expanding their boundaries is they take in land that is either currently irrigated or has irrigation infrastructure on it, ditches running through it or canals or whatever. Part of the work of the Jackson County Agricultural Task Force that was mentioned earlier that I sat on, one of the things that we did was developed a protocol so that if a city starts looking in those areas for possible expansion, they have to go through a set of steps and connect with the irrigation districts at the very beginning of the process instead of at the end, and bring the property owners in so that everybody understands if this area gets urbanized, what is the impact on the irrigation district going to be and who's going to pay to mitigate that. And those regulations just got adopted by the Jackson County Board of Commissioners and will be in place now for this process that I was talking about, where these cities in Jackson County are potentially expanding their boundaries. That's a part of an answer to that question.
So I think the answer I would give is yes. There are a lot of studies looking at agriculture and irrigation systems in our Rogue Valley. I think the short answer I would give is that we have a very antiquated system in place here. And there are a number of processes that are looking at possible alternatives to that. One of the major ones that's been talked about for a long time is the WISE project that would look at transitioning our agricultural irrigation system to a new system that's more up to date and up to par with what other parts of the country are doing. At this stage in the game, the challenge here is we're looking at a very, very large infrastructure system, and it's not cheap to replace it or to modify it. And so anything we see that's going to change that, it's going to require a transition of not just the canal structure, but it's also going to require a transition of all of the irrigation equipment that many of our landowners are using presently. So this is a major shift, and there's a good reason it's taken so long. My hope is that a lot of the good science that's been done by my colleagues and many of the colleagues around the state will ultimately be used to make a good decision in that regard. I see people in the room right now who are involved in that process. So I see a lot of hope there. Just as an aside, in the studies that we've done looking at land potential in the Rogue Valley, it's probably water that more than land that's a limiting factor for us. That said, we actually have quite a bit of water in our watershed. We just have to capture it in a much more efficient way. It's not that it's not here. We just don't actually grab it the way we could.
All right, so I know there are a lot of questions that aren't going to get answered here in front of everybody, but a lot of the questions we got are very specific, and please do take the time when we wrap up here to connect with these folks up here to ask your questions one-on-one or connect with anybody else that's been identified here in the room as part of the network. But I'm going to kind of wrap up with a big picture one, if that's okay with everybody. This question asks, what are the biggest obstacles to achieving your goals, and how can we help beyond the ways that you've mentioned tonight?
Oh, I've got the microphone, so I'll just offer one real quick, and that's it was actually mentioned earlier, and that is to avoid turf wars. One of the biggest challenges, and my research is in researching food systems and researching food system councils. That's what I've done in other parts of the country. And the thing I see happening successfully is when individuals back down off of their independent and personal goals and ask questions about how they can contribute to a larger and more structural or regional goal. In that regard, food system, interested people in the food system haven't been historically very good at this. We tend to get very personal. We take our land very seriously, and we take what we want to do very seriously, and I respect that very highly. But I would say the best thing you could do to help us right now is to consider what you could do to benefit the system as a whole. And obviously that's a compromise, but we have to compromise.
So I guess I would ask you to, this is so silly, it doesn't talk. So I guess I would ask you to really walk your talk. If you want to support Rogue Valley grown produce, when you go to the grocery store and you don't see it, ask your produce manager, ask your buyer why it's not here. Because if they get enough pressure, they're going to start making commitments to the farmers to actually grow it, and it'll be in the stores. When you're at your restaurant, ask what Rogue Valley grown produce they have. Order the menu item that's the Rogue Valley, grown special. We had a Eat Local week that Thrive puts on, and go out there during that week and support the businesses that are supporting the local food. So. Do you want? You don't have anything?
Get into farming, yeah. I think I would just echo what Vince said, and I think that's a great place to wrap this up. It's going to take all of us working together. Some of us are going to have to give up a little bit. Some of us maybe not so much, but we're all going to need to understand the bigger picture of what the issues are and how what we're working on fits into that big picture and how we maybe can modify what we're doing in order to help the whole. I think that's a great place to wrap this with.
All right, well, thank you to all of our speakers and Representative Buckley for his opening remarks. There's still snacks, there's still time that we have in this room, so please use this time to network, mix, mingle, interact with each other, come ask us questions. And yeah, let's give one last round of applause to all our speakers.